had 3 indoor cooking fires that resulted in little to no damage, and unattended pot on the stove kind of thing. What we find that's interesting, and most of the time we have to force entry to the house or the residence because people are gone and they've left a pot on the stove or something.
Were these incidents in the multifamily?
Yes.
Not the single family home?
No, I don't recall any of the units.
Man, that's killer. Is there some way we can notify the homeowners association to inform their residents to be more careful?
I would say that would be, yeah, there always could be something done from the you know, like Watergate from the management company.
Right,
Could send
right.
out a bulletin or something to warn people.
Okay.
We had, on the 2nd of June, we had an outside small fire, and it was some group of homeless folks that were cooking food out there. We went along with EPD and
What was
instructed
the
them.
location?
It was,
Back at Home Depot?
no, it was off,
White Street, 3610, 3600.
that could have been it. Were you there?
I was there on 2 of the calls.
Okay, well, that's probably where it was then.
Watt Street, 3600
Behind
block?
the, it's right, it's open, but we were called out by residents at the Investor Laundry Complex there.
You're right.
It's behind the,
It's kind of behind.
no, it's behind
in
the
that
garden.
area.
It's behind the
Yeah.
community garden there. That street that runs behind that, that's Watts,
Right,
as you come off the freeway.
okay.
We went to one working vehicle fire on 580 out just outside of Ashby, and had a couple of, there's a motor oil spill on the 24th of June that was a pretty good amount that was spread along the roadway, so Public Works came out and worked with them to pick that up. And then we had an interesting call out here in the marina. It was a call for a water rescue, and we sent a couple of units out. Oakland came down, Berkeley
Did you
came
send
out.
your boat up?
We were getting ready to, but it turned out the boat was just being towed. So it was an underway vessel, and I'm not quite sure how that, they came to the conclusion the boat was in trouble. Yes, it was, but they were being towed by somebody, so it turned out to be nothing.
Did the Coast Guard get involved?
Coast Guard was notified, but it was shallow water, and they can't get past 6-foot line, so in that area, it's really, they're of little use because they can't respond.
Which is 90% of the bay, waters is shallow waters.
Well, this area is very interesting because, as you know, the conditions change.
Right.
There's an imaginary line they call the 6-foot line that is the average mean depth out there, and the Coast Guard boat drivers are young guys that don't want to end their career by putting a boat on the ground. So it's an exaggeration, but it takes an act of Congress for them to pass that line, and they just don't do shallow water, so it falls down to us to do it.
Okay.
So that was the last interesting one. We did PEP workshop for our staff, did a personal emergency preparedness workshop at Ambassador on the 20th of June, had 9 attendees. And Nick and his staff also did 2 ICS 700 trainings on the 26th, and had 37 people there.
Oh, good.
Nick also, he's got a grant meeting that he is competing with his time today, so he couldn't make it, but he'll be here also. So if there's any questions about public education. And then our Fire Marshal Bonnie Terry is here to talk about fire prevention and answer any prevention questions if you have.
How are you going to prevent the fireworks in the residential districts tonight? That's my big question.
There's no way to prevent it. We can tell individuals what the rules are. We can be out there monitoring. We can respond to the calls for service. But there's literally no way other than if we were able to get every single firework that has been purchased off the streets. There's just no way to prevent it. What we have to do is mitigate all of the issues and be prepared to respond in a quick and a diligent fashion so that we can reduce any damage or hazards to the community. Ultimately, especially with fireworks, it takes a partnership with our community members in order for us to maintain safety. So as far as, I know there were some questions about fire prevention activities, and I wanted to follow up as requested. So the deputy fire marshal here in the city of Emeryville is the one responsible for all of what we call annual inspections. So that's apartments, schools, high rises, all of those that are state mandated inspections, and Deputy Warren does those. He also handles the complaints, the multitude of construction inspections, development review meetings, any fire protection system inspections like those that are going on at Watergate. I know that's been brought up. And the plan reviews. We also do have a company inspection program where our engine companies are assigned inspections. And those were the ones that were signed out for 13-14 were just completed and turned into the city for those. And the 14-15 inspections for the engine companies have been sent out. And we've assigned 336 this year out to the engine companies. So we are getting out to all the businesses within the community that are not a mandated state inspection every 2 years, and the state inspections are getting done every year.
Given the amount of large construction projects that are going on in the city, Deputy Warren probably is busy really going out and inspecting all these. My concern is that the program for regular inspections of the business facilities is being maintained. And do you have like a printout of the plan of, say, take 2014, you've inspected these many, this many businesses, you have this many to inspect? Is there something visible like that we could take a look at?
That is the company inspection program that I just referred to. And what happens is there's 336 that were assigned out for fiscal year 14-15, and there will be 336 assigned out for 15-16. Because of the number of businesses, we have to run it on a 2-year cycle program. So all those non-state mandated businesses are getting inspected once every 2 years, and we're assigning those out to the engine companies. So that gives each engine company 56 inspections in a given year to go out and do. And that's a manageable number if you divide it by 12 months.
But I think your question's about the
My
documentation.
question is about the documentation.
Yes.
I would like to see whatever hard copy you have of your spreadsheet on what has been inspected, what is left to be inspected in 2014 and then in 2015. I think it may be helpful to the council to see something like that at a future council meeting to understand the depth of Alameda County Fire. That there's real backup there, that there's real progress on inspection.
Yes, we met with the city manager and assistant city manager to come up with how we identify the right workflow. And so when the inspectors go out, they have a sheet that lists all the possible infractions, and they list all the data on that, and then the spreadsheet tracks who's done what to date and what's still remaining.
So to give an idea, in 2012-13, amongst all the various things that are done by the engine companies and the deputy fire marshal, we had 537 either fire protection inspections, company inspections, or anything else. And that was our transition year. In 13-14, that number jumped to 927. And we're jumping even further in 14-15 with our engine company assignments.
I think this is a very valuable information for the council and the community in terms of Alameda County Fire. And I'll be talking to Sabrina about having some kind of a report put on the agenda, a city council agenda in the future, 2 or 3 months down the line.
Sure. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
just so we give you early warning, no side. Anything else, Rob?
No, ma'am, that's it.
Any questions for fire? Okay, we'll move along to Adrian. Good morning.
Good morning. For the month of June, we had 146 Part 1 crimes. This is a 25% increase compared to the same time last year. We're down just a little bit compared to our 3-year average of the same period. However, year-to-date totals show a 14% decrease. When we look at our violent crime categories, the total number of violent crimes for June was 27. That's a 42% increase compared to this time last year. We're up a little bit compared to our 3-year average for the same period. However, year-to-date, we're down 30%. We had no homicides. We did have 1 rape for June. Robberies shows no change, and they show 36% decrease compared to year-to-date. No carjackings, aggravated assaults, we're down 64%, and we're down when you look at our year-to-date statistics, 28%. Simple assault, that's the reason why our assaults are up. We had 16 this month, that's a 700% increase. Remember, small numbers create large percentages. But we're down, when you look at our year-to-date statistics, we're down 31%. And also we count, assaults are counted per victim. So you can have 1 case and have 2 victims and it's counted as 2 assaults. So we had a couple of cases that had 2 victims. And at least 6 of these assaults were domestic violence. Property crimes, we had 119, that's a 21% increase compared to this time last year. We're down a little bit compared to our 3-year average. Year-to-date, we're down 12%. Auto burglaries, we're up 9% compared to this time last year. We're still down compared to our 3-year average of the same period, and we're down when we look at our year-to-date statistics. We're down 14%. Commercial burglaries, we're down when you compare it to this time last year, and we're also down year-to-date. Residential burglaries, we're up. We're up 40% compared to this time last year. We're up when you look at our 3-year average for the same period, but there's no change when you look at year-to-date statistics. Grand thefts, there's no change in grand thefts, no change in our 3-year average. However, we are down when you look at our year-to-date statistics. We're down 41%. We are up in our petty thefts. We had a lot of shoplifting calls this month. We're up 46%. We're even up a little bit when you look at our 3-year average, and we're up when you look at our year-to-date statistics. We're up 6%. That's just a small increase. Auto thefts, we're up 33% compared to this time last year. We're still down when you look at our 3-year average of the same period, and we're down 39% when you look at our year-to-date statistics. We had no arsons. Mental illness, we're up a little bit, 11%, compared to this time last year. And our 3-year average, we're only up just a little bit. We had 18 for the 3-year average, but we are up year-to-date, 29%. We had 89 adults arrested and 2 juveniles arrested for the month, and that's the report for our crimes.
Any questions for Adrian? I have a question for you, Chief. Does this increase have anything to do with the state dumping the prisoners on the county and the county dumping them out?
Which increase are you talking about? And I have it, before I answer the question, I have a question about the form that we're morphed into. Do you see value in comparing this month's or June's actual crimes to last June? Or would you have better value comparing the crimes that we had in June to last month? And so that we can see the trends monthly. Because when we look at the percent change, in June of 2013, we had 19 violent crimes. In June of 2014, we had 27 violent crimes. That's up 42%. That just says, that gives me a month snapshot. The year-to-date, I think, gives us value that shows that we're down 30% for the first 6 months, in the first 6 months of 2014, as opposed to the first 6 months of 2013. But I'm not sure that looking at the same month a year ago gives us any value, other than numbers that can be alarming.
Well, not on this particular tool that we're using.
Right.
You know, for other reporting purposes, year to year may have some value, but I think it's critical for us, if we see an upward trend month to month, we want to capture that.
Yeah, so I think if we change the first column to the previous month, so this first column would have been May 2014.
Right.
And we would see what we had in May and what we had in June and track that, as
And the
opposed.
year-to-date.
And not change anything on the right side of the first percentage, because that gives us the year-to-date on it in the comparison to the year-to-date last year, so that the year-to-date 2013 gives us the first 6 months of 2013. The year-to-date 14 gives us the first 6 months, and we can compare those and see that we're down 30%.
No, I think that's a reasonable
So,
thing to do. Any other
Can we
comments
change
on
this to
that?
May? So, in getting back to that, which increases are you looking at? Because overall, we're down 14% when compared to last year, the first 6 months of last year. In the month of June last year, we only had 98 crimes, and in the month of June this year, we've had 119. I don't think that I can answer the question on those, because looking at what it was last year as opposed to this year, that was the causations of the crimes. I can't say whether it's the
What I'm
things.
particularly concerned about is the home robberies, the home.
Invasions?
Well, they're not really invasions. Some of them are hot prowls, but I guess, but most of them, they observe people, they're gone and they go in. And that really affects the people in town, the people going into their homes. And a substantial increase in that is a significant worry. What
We-
are we using to combat that?
We haven't, for the first 6 months of last year and the first 6 months of this year, we've had the same amount of residential burglaries, where people are breaking in when nobody's there. So we're not seeing a trend of an increase in those. We do on a month-to-month basis, and that's why I say go back to, we compare last month to this month. Our people start to look at those things and look at the trends, and they're reading our logs to know, okay, it seems like we're getting more residential burglaries. Adrian's tracking those, and if she starts to see a trend of time and area and things like that, she puts on a bulletin, and we start to direct our patrols to those areas and hotspots to try to bring it down. So, is it, going back to your original question, I think that we've reached a plateau on crime as to the AB 109 releases. Even though there's a lot more, we've reached a plateau. We saw in the first year, almost 2 years, it go up, but now it's kind of reached an equilibrium, and we're in a flat plateau now. We're not seeing greater increases. Those AB 209 people that have been released that are going to reoffend are reoffending, and they're reoffending at the same rate as they were last year and the year before, so we're not seeing an increase. But overall, over the last 3 years, we are seeing an increase because of the releases. Where in looking at your question, where I think that we really are seeing the significant increase is the mental illness contacts that we have, and many of those are AB 109 releasees. They're people that have been put on the system because they're a non, and they have no home, and they have some mental issues that while they were in prison, they were being treated. But while they're on their own and being monitored by probation, they're not being treated. And we run into them on a far greater incidences now than we had before. We're up 29%. That's being reported countywide, that we're seeing it up significantly. And I do believe that this is overwhelming the emergency psychiatric facilities in the city, or in the county, and those facilities are not adequately addressing the mental illnesses that are being brought in. They're looking at it and saying, this person is only out of it because they're under the influence of a drug or narcotic. When they sober up, they interview them, they see that they're not a danger to themselves, so they kick them out the door, but that person is not getting the treatment that they need that gets them into that vicious cycle of drink, go to the hospital, sober, get out, drink, and go on. I reported 2 months ago that I was going to take to our county chiefs the Laura's Law to see if we could put some pressures on our soups to do it. There's backing amongst the County Chiefs Association to do that. They wanted to vet it a little bit more, and a multidisciplinary task force that has been put together in the county, and I've yet to introduce it to them. It was encouraging to hear that the district attorney is in strong support of Laura's Law, but there seems to be some political resistance on the Board of Soups because of some personal stories that they have, that they're concerned that Laura's Law will stigmatize some of the mental illness issues in the county, and those individuals with them. So we're going to try to overcome those and look at the advantages of Laura's Law. What that will do for us is some of these people that are chronic 5150s but are then being released, we can start to identify those, and if there's a significant mental illness there, not that they're completely out of it and unable to care for their safety, but they're significantly mentally impaired, we can get them into, if Laura's Law is in place, we can go to a court and ask them to have mandatory outpatient treatment for these people. And as the initial backers of the law, Amanda Wilcox and her husband Nick, as Amanda says, many times these people with serious mental illnesses don't realize that they're mentally ill. Their normal is far
Right.
different than the regular person, and they think that they're just normal. In Amanda's case, Amanda and Nick's case, their daughter was murdered up in Nevada County by somebody that just thought that that was normal to do, and didn't realize that it wasn't. And so we're working to try to get those back
Well,
home.
we all know that one of the problems here in the city is we have repetitive incidents with the same 5150s over and over and over again. If we focus on that particular universe of people, to see if we can't bring them help. And so the chiefs are working on it, and I understand Oakland and Berkeley and Emeryville met together focusing on these repetitive arrest type.
No, we got together to look at the homeless issues.
Well, of
And
course, the 5150s are a significant portion.
significant portion
Yeah.
of that. And one of the things that as we got together, it seemed like Berkeley wasn't interested in playing in the same sandbox with everybody else. Oakland seemed
Nothing
very interested. We did learn that there is a crisis intervention team in the county that is utilized mainly in Oakland, and it's because Oakland knew about it and nobody else knew about it, so we've got numbers to call. But we've also identified for our own selves that we need to increase the training for our officers and our dispatchers in recognizing people that are in crisis and doing a better job of that. I mean, it's fairly simple when we go out and we find somebody that can't put a coherent sentence together and is obviously out of it, that they're unable to care for their own safety, and we can send them away. But when we look at somebody that is fairly articulate but is in having a mental crisis at that point, we need to be better off in looking at those and saying, this person really does need to go see is a danger to
A
themselves.
higher level than John
Yeah.
George, more extensive.
Well,
And just focusing on that 20% that are
yeah,
repetitive.
in
That's very
actuality,
tough.
it's not, it would be to get them to John George. It's just the person that isn't obviously out of it. It's the person, the example I'll use is the suspect
Santa Barbara?
in Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
He obviously was having a mental crisis, but he was articulate, he was responsive, and under our criteria, he was not somebody that was a danger to himself and others immediately. We need to have better training to start to observe and say, although this guy isn't talking to aliens, he is a danger to himself and others, and we do need to get him to John George to be evaluated. And that's the type of training we're looking for.
And we're, you know, just sending him to John George or to jail over and over again serves no purpose. We've got to go in a different direction.
And in
Sounds
actuality,
like you are.
in actuality, what we're finding also is that our criminals recognize the game that can be played, and so they know that if they go down to Oakland to be booked and they don't answer the questions, they're going to have to go to Santa Rita, and they know that if they go to Santa Rita, we're going to have, especially if they didn't answer the medical questions, we're gonna have to take them to the county hospital to have them evaluated before they're can go to Santa Rita. And so it starts, what they're thinking is it costs them more, and it's more of an irritant to arrest me than to let me go. They'll probably let me go. Well, that wasn't working, so now they found out that and they'll say, well, I want to kill myself. And so off to John George we send them. They know they're not under a police guard. They know they can walk away from John George. And John George does not do a good job of, even when we have a police hold, notifying us when they're going to release somebody. So that a lot of our criminals are feigning a mental illness in hopes of beating the arrest.
Okay, we beat that to death, but there's another statistic in there, and I'm concerned about that. That's the big increase in the shoplifting. Are you seeing that in Bay Street?
Just the norm, Victoria's Secret, the same stores. A lot of it that you're seeing is because they won't press charges, for whatever reasons. It may be corporate. Some of them don't have the right to review service, so these same people come in there.
So some of this is attributable to the lack of cooperation from the corporation.
In actuality, a lot of it is attributable to the good work of the crime prevention people in the retail stores in catching.
Target seems to be very good at that,
Tar-
and the Home Depot guy.
They're all very
On
good
top of
at
it,
it, yeah.
yeah.
And so when they catch them, then we know we have a crime. And we make the arrest and record the crime. If somebody walks out the door and they don't know they've been stolen, and it happens at Victoria's Secrets all the time, they'll go through and do an inventory and find out that they're missing 1,000 pairs of underwear, and they'll call us to report a crime, but they have no idea when how the crime was committed.
Or often we'll see it where EPD will respond for Old Navy and catch them in there, but they have goods from Victoria's Secret or Forever 21, and then that time they'll get their stuff back, so.
One of my concerns here, besides the loss of property, is how much time does it take our foreign officers when they're involved with a shoplifting incident? You know, that's a lot of incidents for a little town and a small fort.
And
Ballpark, how much time does it take
I'll look to
to
Joel.
handle shoplifting?
If it's a juvenile, it can take up to probably 2.5 to 3 hours processing a juvenile with an adult. If it's a simple case, it can take, not including report writing, just getting there, meeting with the people on scene, and then transporting the suspect to jail, about 45 minutes to an hour.
But that's all getting longer
Yes.
because of
what the chief was referring to is they know how to play the game. So,
Right.
like as we were saying at city council, a simple petty theft, when they have a couple priors, and we take them to jail, could turn into a case that would take us as much as if it was a major crime. So you're talking overtime, and then investigation and all that, you're talking it could be 3-4 hours. I would say that the average time is fairly short, and we run into longer times, mainly because of transport and medical clearances when it occurs. But on average, the retail prevention people do a good job of having 90% of the paperwork done before they call us. And when they call us, we walk in, we interview them, what they have, they hand us their statements, they hand us their paperwork, and we'll make a determination if that individual's hasn't been convicted of a theft type crime before, of whether to take them to jail or cite them out. And if they haven't been convicted, they're cited out and we're on our way. That could take as little as 45 minutes. But if somebody's been arrested and convicted of shoplift before, and it's a female, and we're going out to Santa Rita at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it could be 2.5 3 hours.
Yeah.
And that's not including any time that we have to take them to either Alameda County Hospital Highland for medical clearance.
See,
There are a few
these
sections.
seem like minor crimes, but they're eating up a lot of the police department's time.
It's eating up a lot of the police department's time. It's the reason that we have expanded our minimum staffing from a sergeant and 2 to a sergeant and 3. And we're finding that in a lot of times that's not enough, because if we get a theft at Home Depot and a theft at Target simultaneously that happen to involve females that are going to go to Santa Rita, now we have 2 officers transporting out, and we're down to a sergeant and 2. So, yes, it does take a lot of time, but it is what it is.
It takes away time for the proactiveness of them being able to patrol in areas
Exactly,
looking
my
for.
point exactly. While they're, focusing on these 2-bit shoplifters, where we want the police to be out in the neighborhood patrolling the street. So this is a dilemma that is probably important to focus on and see if there's any way we can ameliorate this.
We are doing all that we can, and we're open to anything. Like I said, we, through years with the Security Coalition and things like that, we've trained on how to streamline the process for us, so that we're minimizing the amount of time that we're down for the arrest. We're looking at ways to cite people out when we have that opportunity rather than take them to jail. We are.
In addition, is that we're even looking at exploring what other agencies for when, let's just say we arrest someone, but we can't afford to have an officer sit up there and take them away from the streets, looking at other agencies have looked to hiring outside armed guards to sit with that person at the hospital, looking to see what the cost factor of that versus using our personnel when we're short-staffed. So exploring all kinds of alternatives.
But let me ask you a question, because the point you made about taking somebody to Santa Rita at 4 o'clock in the afternoon is absolutely valid. If you arrest a shoplifter at 4 o'clock and there's a have to go to Santa Rita, can you hold them at all here for 2 or 3 hours?
We don't have any facilities to hold them.
You don't have a locked room?
No, and to abide to have some type of holding detention or jail or whatever, there's all kinds of regulations, and you actually have to have personnel watch that person for.
But does it have to be a sworn officer?
No, it doesn't have to be a sworn officer, but as Jeannie says, the regulations are so stringent that it really is cost prohibitive to try to get a secure detention facility in the department here.
We basically have to meet the requirements of a regular jail and,
Even if it's a temporary holding.
and keep it up.
And in addition to that, it really, it causes us issues when we bring a juvenile in. Because a juvenile cannot be detained in an adult facility. And if we have holding facilities here and are labeled as even a temporary facility, then we couldn't bring juveniles in to process them here, and we just don't have any other facility to process them.
And do you have to have a sworn officer take the person to Santa Rita? Is there another way to do that?
There are other ways to do it. There are private companies that will do transports for you, but those companies are generally longer type of transports, and they're more to, if you have somebody that's been arrested on your warrant in Southern California, rather than send your people down to pick them up, you contract with them to bring them up and that type of thing. It would be very, very beneficial, but the sheriff isn't gonna do it because without charging us an arm and a leg, I'm sure. If we did have like a North County paddy wagon that would make the rounds and pick people up to
Right,
take them
right.
to Santa Rita, but we just don't have that. And the sheriff doesn't have that. He'll tell you he doesn't have the staffing to do that. And, I kind of believe that he probably doesn't have the staffing to do that. And even if we went in as a regional operation, we're between Berkeley, Oakland, Emeryville, Albany, to do that, I'm not so sure that we would be able to do it effectively and cost
Let's
effectively.
keep our minds
Oh.
open for alternatives, because sworn Emeryville officers going out to Santa Rita at 4 o'clock, to my mind, is just not, we have a good staff, but it's very small, and it's a killer.
I had a sergeant come in on Tuesday afternoon and says, look, and he says, hey, we're down to the three of us. I'm holding, and one of the three is I'm holding over. He says, unless you have any objections, unless they necessarily have to go to jail, we're gonna cite them out. Which means that even if they qualify to go to jail on a petty theft with a prior, we cite them out and find a way to not have to transport them to
Yeah,
jail.
I hope we take another look at that, alternative, and even if the sheriff says no, people say no all the time, but if you hit them long enough.
We are exploring, believe me, cops can be some of the most efficient people and find ways to build efficiencies than anybody else to get on of doing more work. And they're exploring that all the time, and we've made shortcuts. We've done things to lessen the amount of time that we spend with them. And we're trying to find those efficiencies.
Nora, before
Yeah.
we move on, we also, I'm not sure if I have the name accurate, but the Pink Group or the Pink Ladies are known for being more in San Francisco. We canceled the call to EPD because they didn't want to press charges, which is Victoria's Secret, but this is not the Wild and Out group. They are a group of women / gay men, and they dress in pink. But when they come into the store, they don't come in trying to shoplift and not be seen. They come in like 5 at a time and just bum rush the store. So
Have this happened in Bay
It
Street?
happened at Victoria's Secret. We have heard about them being in San Francisco a lot. And it's like a group where it's like 3 women and then the 2 guys. But they don't come in one at a time. They just come in all together and cause havoc. They just all start snatching things at one time, and it's hard to control it because it's not one person.
Right.
We did encounter them. A lot of the stuff was dropped. before they left out the store. But, Victoria's Secret didn't wanna press charges because most of the merchandise they got back, we had them on camera visual, had EPD on the line, but once they don't want to press charges, there's really not a need to have EPD come out, because, so we
What do you
followed
say
them on
about
camera
that,
across the
Chief?
street
I
from
just
Powell
asked
Street.
Adrian to follow up with Bay Street in San Francisco and see if we can't get a bulletin out to our people so that they can.
You see a bunch of people in
in
pink, call the
pink,
cops.
Or we, if
If
we're
they're
driving
ready,
down,
forget it.
if we're driving down the street and we see a bunch of adults in pink all together, then we keep an eye on them.
And
I
we
hope
reach
that
out to
doesn't-
Emeryville around as well, and, especially with the Wild and Out, if they get a group. We do that anyway because of the known history on Bay Street with the, group of juveniles, but we're asking for their help anytime they come over the overpass and they notice a large number. Alice as well is on the committee, so they agreed they would give us a call, for the surrounding areas.
Yeah, so the more if we're called out, we can always identify the people, and that gives us more probable cause the next time, and so we're not blindsided by it, and if something does happen, to just let go.
And you have a good connection with the Emeryville around to send them a bulletin on this to alert them,
Sure.
so that they can call you by the time they stop at Bay Street. How's the juvenile activity going this summer?
So far, so good.
I think the rules you have in place are really helping a lot.
Yeah, I noticed a change. I can remember being there when they were out of control and compared to now. The apartments, I think, suffering more now because they love the pool area. So the apartments is the one we're getting the calls to go get them out
Okay.
the pool.
All right, we gotta move along. Overtime.
Last one for this year, we overspent our budget by $106,668. May was probably, I'm sorry, I didn't May, I got a typo there, June. June was probably the largest month of the 12 that we had. Couple typos on there. With $60,000 in overtime, the majority of that was in staffing, $35,000. And the majority of the staffing was to cover for vacations. June's a vacation season, although we only permit two patrol officers, or 2 officers and 2 PSTs off at a time, that's still 4 people down. So we're up on this. This year, which segues into our staffing levels. We, besides the 4 openings that we have 2 officers that are off with significant injuries. One's a back that looks like it's going to lead to surgery, and one's a knee that has been repaired once, and he's out for 4 more weeks now. We have an officer that is on leave with pay at this point, pending the completion of an investigation, and we'll see where that leads. So we may have additional openings as a result of that. We are going through the recruitment process right now. Today we're completing 2 weeks of interviews of entry-level people. I believe we had 120 that got to the physical agility.
Got approximately 120.
So we're hopeful that we have slots in the academies, but even if we hit the jackpot and got 4 people out of this recruitment, where it's 6 months of academy and then 3 more months of FTO before they're driving in a car all by themselves. So it's 9 months down the road that we're looking at this. Now, although we overspent $106,000, our budget is coming in under budget to the tune of almost $2 million.
Right, right. So I still say it shouldn't be construed that way, but,
Yeah.
because it doesn't, you really are under budget because of the vacant spots. And,
Exactly.
you know, you look at an overtime figure and people say, what are they doing here? But they don't understand what the situation is.
Of more concern for us now is that we're getting into the area of mandatory overtime, which means a lot of hours that people are working. We're not there yet, and it still is voluntary, and we have officers that will work their day, one of their 3 days off and those type of things to fill it or work on their day off. But we have a lot of officers that are working a lot of hours
And that's not good.
in excess, and,
Not
yeah,
good.
and that's a concern for us.
Okay, moving along to Love Our Neighbor Day. We're all set for that, guys. Everybody's set for Love Our Neighborhood Day?
We have 4th of July before.
Oh, okay.
Joel's here to talk about 4th of
Okay,
July.
tell us about 4th of July.
Uh,
Oh, good, Joel. Good.
I brought in some copies of some of the flyers that we distributed, especially here in the peninsula for the marina area, talking about 4th of July, the zero tolerance for fireworks and alcohol in the marina areas. Those were distributed around, and we still have more that we can distribute to alert people that, again, fireworks and alcohol consumption in public are not allowed. Fireworks, period. Alcohol consumption is only allowed in specific areas. The other one is notice of road closure for the 4th of July detail, and talks about no parking off pavement or on the planter strips in the marina area. Sometimes people will try to find the most convenient place for them to park so they can get out of their cars and see the fireworks display.
You have Buried Brothers alerted to tow?
We have tow companies that will help us out, yes.
Yeah, that's important. That's important.
We have our 4th of July action plan has been posted in our department, and it includes about 35 personnel working that day for various assignments dealing with the 4th of July here in the marina. That includes staffing for patrol calls for service, if anyone call for emergency service or regular calls for service out away from the marina, and it includes our special detail for the marina, traffic control and safety there in the marina. It's basically an all-hands muster unless they're on scheduled days off. The chief, the commander, the captain, and everyone else will be there and helping out. It's one of our biggest functions for the year.
What we have new this year is community service has set up
The band.
bands,
That's right.
2 bands until 8:30 at night. So that's gonna be a little bit new for us, and we're wondering if we're gonna get an increase of crowds to see the band. And then simultaneously, which we have no control over, is there's a wedding that's occurring at Hong Kong Sochin.
Thank
So-
you, Joel, very much.
So, but they understand that they have to provide parking for I think they're expecting 100 people, but it has to be limited to their lot.
And they didn't reserve the meadow.
No,
It's gonna be
it's in their
inside,
restaurant,
Hong
but
Kong
it's
is.
still a lot of people.
Well, it sounds to me like you really have the frontage road and the marina really intensely covered. What I'm concerned about is these jackasses, pardon the expression, that are setting off fireworks on the east side. You know, those are old homes, they're tinder, and what's fire gonna do about these people that are setting off fireworks? If they call the police, right? And the police respond, and what's gonna be the response from fire?
We don't actively confiscate anything. I guess that's the short answer.
I'm more in terms of the ability to get there, given the amount of traffic there's gonna be in the city.
You know, that's really a situational thing. I mean, we have probably 30-some extra people department-wide in various areas. We're not up staffing here,
Okay.
but we've got we've got all kinds of people all over the place.
But you are alert to the fact that usually on the Fourth of July, we have some people on the east side that are setting off fireworks. And there's a lot of shrubbery over there, an old wooden house.
Our patrol unit that we have designated on the east end of the city usually stays in that area while we handle the
And
west
they'll
end.
be patrolling up and down the east end.
And as we're getting calls in regards to fireworks, usually they'll check it out and see if it's in our city or in Oakland, in the surrounding areas, and then report such fact on the air.
Okay.
But there's enough of us, and usually fire is on the other side, ready to respond.
Okay. Moving on to Love Our Neighborhood. Do we have a traffic plan from these people?
They just not, it's still ongoing, but what we've done is same thing we're doing for July 4th, created an action plan to cover our portion of the city. We were just notified, the other day, Oakland had contacted us and asked us what we're doing, because they were just informed.
Oakland PD. They were just informed?
They were just informed that this was going to happen and that Shasta Pro had contacted them and stated that they needed OPDs for traffic control on San Pablo. And so he's asking what we're doing, so we're coordinating with him, but they're stretched pretty thin and they're looking at reserves. They're reserve officers.
And Caltrans said, okay, they could close the road?
We haven't, I know they were in talks with Caltrans.
It would be nice to see a written response from Caltrans that say that that road can be closed.
I know Roselle's working with them. They had a verbal, but we haven't
Pretty loose.
seen anything official. So we have, we're prepared. It's an all-hands muster. Same amount of people for July 4th will be out there for this.
Wow.
But that's because we're closing a quarter of the city. When you look at,
Oh, absolutely.
if you look at a map that they had just tentatively provided us, which here's all of San Pablo, that's a quarter of the city, which is the main artery. And so we need from here on to make sure
Absolutely.
that we have traffic.
I have asked those, the organizers numerous times to alert the people in that quadrangle, the Emeryville people in that quadrangle, because their ability to get in and out of their houses is going to be very, very limited. But to date, nothing has been done. And in July,
I know Roselle has been working closely with them as to notifying the residents. That's what I'm worried about.
and how much is this going to cost us ballpark?
We estimate, same thing as July 4th, about 10, close to 11,000.
All right, August 7th. My bias is, this is a very valuable meeting, but if everybody else doesn't want to have a meeting on August 7th, so who wants us to cancel the meeting on August 7th? Come on,
Vacation.
guys. Come on, speak up, guys.
I can tell you right now that we will be here on August 7th, whether there's a meeting or not. It's just whether we walk into this room.
All right, let's, you're very important here, both police and fire, so my bias is to have a meeting on August 7th.
Okay, so we will have a meeting on August 7th.
Absolutely, and with a
Moved,
recap.
moved and seconded and
Yeah, right.
unanimously agreed upon by
By one person.
by the members of the committee?
And we can follow up as to what happened on July 12th. on
Yeah,
the-
I think it's important that we, by that time, have had the input from the residents of that particular quadrangle as to whether they love it and they want to do it again. If so, we will plan for it in the budget, or if they're in business, who knows? All right, any other questions or comments? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you one and all. Thank you for coming, Ms. Wallace.